So I welcome you all on behalf of JuniorIT.ai. Today we will learn a lot of things like HTML, CSS, React, Figma, Tailwind, CSS, Bootstrap, etc. But the challenge is we will learn all of this in just an hour. It may feel challenging to you, but we are going to use some tips and tricks and also the magic of AI. To make this class more interactive, we will give you some tasks that also include some research using AI. In this way, you will get familiarized with how to use AI. So you will get one student's page in the comment box. You can click on the student's page and it will lead you to an interactive task environment. And I am going to give you some tasks, and the task may include some AI research so that you can get familiarized with AI and can do some tasks. So let's start. So in today's class, we will answer some basic questions. So for one of the question is, why can't you do any front-end coding task even after learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, even React.js? And the second question is, why can't you do any front-end UX design even after learning graphic design and Figma? So let me give you a brief answer for the first question. Even after learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you still struggle to do any front-end project because you still lack the basics of design. Though it's not compulsory to be a great designer to become a good coder, but still you must know basics of design layout and responsive design patterns to create a real-world project. And for the second question, even after learning a lot of things like Figma, let me just show you the second question. Yeah. Even after learning a lot of things like graphic design and Figma, still people lack the ability to build a good UX design because it's the both way. A designer must need a way to communicate with the coder, and a coder must need a way to communicate with designer. So let me ask one question from you. So what is this image represents? A lot of boxes, right? But do you believe if I say all those boxes are actually the parts of a website or web application? Yeah. So this is a much simpler design, but looks more attractive. As a developer, you can create a website like this because it's more better looking. And you can see this image. This image contains arrangements of different modular boxes. The same concept that we have used in a previous image. A website just contains some boxes, and inside those boxes contains some smaller boxes, just like a hierarchy of boxes, just like cascading of boxes. So that is why it's important to know the concept of design. So let me give you an example to know what do I mean by box design. So we are going to visit juniorit.ai. Show you another tab. Yeah. So we are going to visit juniorit.ai. As you can see, this is our website or web application. I'm just going to click on inspect element. Then this arrow button. And as you can see, this image is also one box. This link is also one box. This text is also one box. Even this logo is also one box. This button also one box. And even this text is also one box only. So it means all those websites that we visit regularly or the applications that we develop just contains boxes. So this is a simple design for a web application or a website. This website or web application design contains a header menu, a side menu, a footer bottom menu, and some images and text. So I already told you everything inside a web application or a website consists of boxes, right? So we have different boxes for text. We have different boxes for images. And once you know how one box functions, you can easily know how different boxes functions, because initially or basically all those things are just boxes and nothing else. So let's compare this design with our junior IT web application. So as a web developer or a full stack developer, the design team will give you a sketch or a wireframe to design the website just like this. But as a beginner who do not know how to do basic design will create an application like this. So this application may look good in your project, but when any project manager or a product manager views the design in his device, this design may look odd and broken as there is content loss due to the design. So let me show you what do I mean by this. Suppose you don't have the basic idea how design works or how responsive websites work. So as a developer, you may create a website like this or a web application like this. But the main problem with this is that the content is lost. We are losing the content. We are losing the text and the images. Or even worse, you can create a website or a web application like this. So this do contains all the information, but it's not easy to understand. It's not easy to view. It's not looking attractive. All those contents are, basically just collapsing with each other. So let me again give you the example of junior IT website. So as you can see, when I will change the dimensions of the website still looks good. And all those boxes, as I already told you, everything inside a website just consists of boxes. This text, these sections are all just boxes. So when I change the screen size or when I change the viewing size of my browser, the content rearrange themselves. As you can see. So let me give you one more example. Let's view our website in mobile view. Initially, all our links are at the topmost page, but when we are viewing our website or web application on mobile view, we have the sideways menu like home, courses, pricing, playground, resources, etc. So you can see that we have made this web application or the website much more responsive and adapted to different screen size. And as an expert full stack developer, you will also have to do, otherwise you will lose your job. So in the end, everything inside a website just contains some boxes. And once you know how to work with one box, you will know how to work with the complete website. So we called something called as HTML elements or tags. These tags are just boxes. So it's the opening tag and the other one is the closing tag. And we can also style our boxes using the style attribute, and we call it as CSS. So let's try to create some boxes using Figma. Let's just close this and visit Figma. Okay, so now we have few students in our class, and I want this class to be interactive as much as possible. So if you have any question, you can ask any question in your comment box, or you can unmute yourself and ask any questions. Okay, if there are no questions, then just visit Figma and just click on design file. After that, I'm going to change the color of it, as white looks much more easier on eyes. Now, so you may think it's very basic or it's very easy to create an application. So let me give you your first task that will require you, or that will give you an idea about how the code is, how the complex is the code to require to complete even a basic task. So let me just give you one URL in the chat box for your tasks. Just click on the URL, and this type of interface will appear. And I'm going to give you one task. Just give me a second. In the meantime, you can ask any question to me. Now I'm going to give you one task. You may feel the designs that we are visiting, the websites are much easier to make. So I have assigned one task to you. Yeah. So let me just share my screen again. So this type of task will appear onto your screen. So please generate an HTML sample code with almost all the tags, and please add inline style CSS to the above HTML file for each text possible. So let's see how an HTML text looks like. Then we will create our tags, or some basic prototype design using Figma. Let me just give it a full screen. Yeah. So as you can see, once you will click on the task, you will see there are lots of HTML tags available like h1, p, div, h2, the list elements, the unordered list, the anchor tags, the image tags. So there are so many tags available, right? So you may think it's difficult to learn all of these tags as there are so many HTML tags and CSS properties available. But all those tags are similar to each other, as in the end, they are all just boxes. So if we learn about just one box, we can use the same concept to all those tags, right? So let's create our first box. So let's visit Junior IT again. Now we are on the Figma page, and now we are going to create some boxes. Now, as a designer or as a coder, you just need to know about two concepts. One is frame, the other one is text, and the third one is images. Using all three things, we are able to create a good design. But as a coder, we only need to learn all these things only. So you don't need to learn about shapes. You can create anything from these shapes also, but it will become much more complex. And you can also use creation tools like pen and pencil, but still it's much more difficult for a developer to create design using these tools. So now we are going to use frames. So just click on the frame button here and just choose one frame. And you can drag that frame as much as you want. Yeah. So let me change the color of the frame. Just click on this button and you will also be able to change the color of your frame. Now I am going to select one more frame. Just click on the fill button. And then just choose the color of your choice. So I'm going to use something like this. Yeah, this will look good. Now I can name this as body. And for the other one, I can name it as button. And I'm going to just, transform it to look like a button. Now, when I will move the body, all the elements or all the boxes inside the body will also move. Just like this. Just like what we are doing using our junior IT example. When we are moving the shape of our web browser, the contents are also moving with the body. Just like this. So again, I am doing the same thing. But there is one problem with this design, right? And the problem is that once you will change the shape of the body like this, so we are losing some content, but we do not want to lose the content, right? We want this to be in the center of it. So how to do that? Just click on the body again and choose auto layout. Now what will auto layout do is that you can change the shape of your body, but the content still be on the same side as we have chosen. So just click on auto layout and choose the middle one. Now there is two terms as hug. Just use fix width and fix height. Just click on fix width and fix height. And just give 0 value here. Let's give it 0 also. Now, as we will resize the body, the content should be in the middle, will always be in the middle, and it will move with the body, just like this. Now let me transform it to look like more of a button. So I'm using the corner radius to be 15, maybe 20. Okay. So now it's look like one login button, right? And we are going to add some text here. And I'm going to name it as button. Not a very fancy name, but still it will work. But again, as I move or resize my button, the text is also moving, but I do not want to do that. So let's again come to button and choose auto layout. Choose it at 0. And also choose it at 0. Now we can resize the button window, but still the button will be at the center. Now let's create some more buttons. I'm going to use Ctrl+C. Then I'm going to paste the buttons here. As you can see, we have like 5 buttons here, but still the buttons are aligning themselves as horizontal. Let's click on the body again. And if you want to change the alignment of the button as vertical, use this button. Now the alignment of buttons is vertical. Still it looks good, but when we change the shape, there is still some content loss. Just like this. So we are going to change the third option, and this is the wrap option. It will auto wrap the elements inside the body or the container, and it will just realign themselves to different lines. Let me show you. Just like this. So let's first give some space between the elements. This option is to give some space between the elements. Let's say 10. Okay. Now as I will resize, the buttons will also resize itself and can take up to several lines. Just like this. Now, let me show you one special magic trick. What do you feel if I say you can convert or transform this design into code? without knowing even a single line of code. You can transform this design into code. So let's try to do this. Just click on this topmost button. Right now, this Figma website is in design mode. And you can also choose development mode or dev mode. Just click on this and come to dev mode. Now inside dev mode, what do I want to do is that search for some plugins. And the first plugin, a plugin gives some special additional benefits to this currently existing Figma. So we are going to first insert one plugin, and the plugin is Figma to Code. Let me give you the name of this in the chat box. So this is the first plugin. I want you to click on the plugin and just select one layer and see, when you will click HTML, it will produce the HTML code for you. Just like this. When you will click on Flutter, it will create the Flutter code for you for the same design. You can also use Tailwind CSS to design it or to customize it, and Swift UI code is also available. So now using this plugin, our work will become much more easier. So let me tell you how. What I want you to do is that just copy this code and again come to your task. Just delete this, write this, and write please above flex code and click on Ask AI. And with simple English, you can learn everything about this code. So it is showing us that the code we provided is written in HTML and CSS, and it represents a Flexbox layout with buttons. So you can read all about this to learn further more about how to work with Flexbox and how to create this using on your own just by scratch. But now, as a full stack developer or as an expert, you don't have to create anything from scratch. You can use Figma to design something, then you can use those design to convert it into code using this plugin. And now you can just play around with this code also. So let me show you one more thing, one more plugin. So let's just click on this cross button and choose this Anima Figma to React. You can search for this plugin. So let me just give you the name in the chat box. Now just click on this button and I'm going to use TypeScript and CSS. And it will represent the React code for me. Just like this with styles.css also. So let's click on open in CodeSandbox. and it will create a sandbox for you so that you can further learn about coding and how this code and everything works. Because coding is just like driving a car, right? You can learn something about driving a car by just watching a YouTube video, but until you himself or yourself will drive a car, you will not understand how to drive a car, and you will not be able to drive a car practically on road. So to drive a car practically on the road, you have to drive your car first with an instructor, right? So same thing or same concepts apply with coding. If you want to learn how to code, you have to code a lot. Now, as you can see, you can play around with this code also, right? Just come to styles.css, and there is one special property known as flex wrap. So as I have already told you, we have used the wrap design, right? So that once we will change the layout, it will wrap around the elements. Now we are going to use flex direction. Let me choose column here. So now all our buttons in this column direction, just like we have done using our Figma auto layout. And if we will choose row, it will be in the row. So Flexbox also has the capabilities to transform the content or to lay out the content using a row, using a column, or even using a wrap, just like we are doing in the Figma using auto layout. So Figma makes it much easier for you to code all of this, because as a beginner, if you will try to code this application or this design, you may take 1 or 2 days. But using Figma and all those plugins and features, you will be able to create your application or the design in just a single day. So that's much how powerful Figma is. So let me show you one more trick. Let's again click on this and let again come to the design mode. Just click here and choose one more page. And I'm going to name the page as components. So first, I will going to delete all those buttons in my first page. Right now, I am in page 1, not in components. So let me just delete all of this. So right now, my page 1 do not contains any buttons. Now I am going to come again to component, and I am going to paste this button. So let me just, resize it a bit. Yeah. So now the trick is that just click on the button, right click it, and click on create component. So you may have heard about React, right? React is a front-end library, and we use React because it's component based and it gives us the chance to reuse our components. We are now using the same concept. We have designed one button, right? And we are going to convert it into one component so that we can reuse this design button or this button into our application as much time as we want. So we do not have to create our code or create our design again and again. So let's come to page 1 again and click on assets. And as you can see, we have created one local component named as button. Now click on insert instance and it will create the button for you. Just like this. See? Much easier to work with. You can create as much an instance as you want. just like this. And it will auto layout themselves. So let me show you one more trick. Let's again come to components. And let's change the color of the button. Choose button. Let's change it color. And as you can see in the page one, the colors of all the buttons are also changed. So using component design, this is one of the features. That's why we use Figma, because once you will create one component, you can reuse the component, right? Now, if you want to, change the individual color of one button, you can also do that. Just click on the button. And you can change the color of the button, just like this. So now you can use Figma to design all of these components, right? But you may be thinking, yeah. So you may be thinking it's difficult to, create all those components from scratch. But let me tell you one superpower of Figma. Figma has something called as UI kit. So let's search for it. And just click on UI kits. And these are the kits available that has reusable components. You can use those components. You do not have to create every component from scratch. And every designer, every developer use only components that are already available. We do not create our own wheel. So I'm going to use this one. Click on open in Figma. So now, as you can see, we have various assets available here. So let's create one page first. So this is one blank page. You can again click on asset just like we have done in our previous section. This time we haven't created all those components, right? We are just reusing those components. Just click on insert instance. And now you have one calendar component, right? And it's much easier to work with this rather than creating your own components. You can even change the colors and, work around with it. You can do different things with each other. Just like this. So Figma produce or just gives you this special tool of UI kit, and you can use those reusable components while creating your own design. So now let's come back to our own design first. That's we are creating from scratch. Now, as you can see, you can resize it and all those components are resizing it themselves. So it's much more responsive design than our previous design. But for easy, let me just delete all of this to show you something. I just want one single button, that's it. Now again, come to development mode. In the development mode, again, click on plugin and choose Anima. And click on open in Sandbox. Now the sandbox will appear that has all the codes that has been transformed from this design using Figma only. We haven't created a single line of code still. Now, as we have created one component, then just click on the component button and button.tsx. Now, as I've already told you, all those things that are provided in a website, just like text, images, all those contents, even like videos or graphics, all those things are just contains inside one box, right? And while developing a website, we use this box model. So everything inside a website is just like a box. So if I just, let me just first delete this. Yeah. So I have just deleted the content inside this, but the box is still available. So can I transform this box from button to any other HTML element or any other HTML tag? So let's try to do this. First, I am going to choose input. And as it's a React code, in HTML code, you don't have to, close input tag, but in a React code, you have to close every tag. So now it become an input type box, right? You can write anything inside it. Can we change its type also? Yes. Can I convert it into a checkbox? Yes, of course. Let's try to do this with some different inputs. Let's use date. Now we have transformed the same button into a calendar, right? So what I mean to show you is by all of these things is that what I want to show you is that you can transform any one box in a website into different boxes, just like inputs, images, tags, or any other tags, right? So let's close this. So now let's again come to our slides. Now we know everything inside a website contains of divisions or boxes, right? And you can style those boxes. We also learned about Flexbox, that we can have Flexbox and the arrangement of elements inside those display Flexbox as column and even as a row. So Figma is a very important software for a UX designer, even for a project manager, product manager, customer, or a client, because even a customer or a client is able to communicate with the development team, with the designer team using Figma. He can also give his inputs or ideas while developing a product. Even a QA engineer also works with Figma to test the designs or the layouts or the responsiveness. And for the last, even for a developer, it's a must to learn tool. Now, again, I will give you some tasks again. So let's again come to our task window. Yeah. So I'm just going to give you a new task. But before this, let's again try to, play around with it a more. So again, I am in development mode. I am using the Anima plugin. So see, we have something called as CSS and Tailwind CSS. So let's see the difference between CSS and Tailwind CSS. So it's just the plain old CSS that we use. And let's try to convert it into Tailwind CSS. Now it's Tailwind CSS. There is no CSS file in Tailwind CSS. So how Tailwind CSS work and how Tailwind CSS is different from our plain old CSS, right? So this is your task and I'm going to give you one prompt. You just have to ask AI about the prompt. So I'm assigning a new task for you. So this is your new task. Can you provide a comparison between Flexbox in native CSS and how it's represented in Tailwind? So let's ask AI about this. So as you can see, here is an example of native CSS. So we are using one class and we are just defining properties one by one as display flex direction. As we have done in our previous section, we have used flex direction for both column and row, justify content and align items. But in case of like Tailwind CSS, we are just providing it one class. We are not writing any custom CSS inside it. We are not using any properties inside it. So by using frameworks or libraries like Tailwind CSS, you just have to provide some classes and it will auto design the element for you. So that's why Tailwind CSS makes our work much more easier. So let's try to differentiate or compare between one more very famous framework. We are using Star and we are just defining properties one by one as display flex. Yeah. So I'm going to assign one new task for you. And that now we are comparing our native CSS with Bootstrap this time. Now the second task for you is, could you provide a comparison between Flexbox in native CSS and how it's represented in Bootstrap? So let's see the difference between Bootstrap and native CSS. So again, this is native CSS. We are just providing one class and using properties and values. And by using Bootstrap, you don't have to provide the custom CSS. You can use the already designed classes for you. And this will again makes your work much more easier. But now the question will arise between Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS, which one to use? So it is going to be your final task. So now we are going to compare between, and there is a comparison between Flexbox in Tailwind CSS and Bootstrap CSS. So let's try to compare between these two popular CSS frameworks. So here is one example using Tailwind CSS and Bootstrap CSS. As you can see in both those frameworks, we are just using classes, and by using classes in our element or by introducing classes in our HTML tags or elements, we are just designing our HTML tags and elements. But the main difference between these two is that Tailwind CSS is more extensively customized. You can customize more using Tailwind CSS. But as it is giving one more feature as more customization. So still Tailwind CSS generates a large file size as compared to Bootstrap CSS. But in case of Bootstrap CSS, though the customization is very limited, but still Bootstrap CSS has a smaller file size as compared to Tailwind CSS. So if you are just creating a small project or a prototype, you can use Bootstrap CSS. But for a large project, or for you, if suppose you need more customization, you can use Tailwind CSS also. So now in the next class, we will learn about HTML DOM or document object model, because inside the computer memory, every web page or every application is loaded as one tree. Every element has one parent element, right? And there is hierarchy of element, just like a tree. So this is a tree-like structure. The root element is the document, and inside document, there is one HTML element, and inside HTML, there is one body element, and inside body, there is one H1 element. That's called as a header element, or we can also have a paragraph element also. So by using these all things, we can use JavaScript to manipulate the code, because up to this point, we are just creating a static website. But now using all these things and JavaScript and DOM manipulation, we can make our website dynamic or much more interactive. But we will do all of these things in our next class. So thank you for joining today's class. Have a great day. And please give your feedback. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat box.